Welcome to the Rimworld mod rundown. We'll be taking a quick look at what you can expect to see from Vanilla Races Expanded Insector. For starters, you'll need to own the additional workshop content, Vanilla Expanded Framework, and Harmony. A new addition to the Vanilla Races series, you'll find that Insector adds a new xenotype, a new starting scenario, and a new system of genealogy, separate from the germline and xenotype system, known as gene lines. I covered Biotech Expansion Insectoid quite recently. If you found that the xenotypes in that mod were a little too specific in their direction and utility, or you weren't a fan of some of the artwork, Races Expanded Insector is a lot more flexible in how the new xenotype plays, and, as with all VE mods, stays a lot more faithful to the original Rimworld art style. Enough preamble anyway. What genes is this new xenotype rocking? Insectors have a pretty straightforward germline setup, which may surprise some of you. They have a good chunk of pure cosmetics, including bug blood, forehead antennae, and vat-grown, mega spider, mega scarab, or spelipede skin variants. Their functional genes include insect flesh, which, if you've been keeping up with the rundown series on VE races, works similarly to what the pigskins have with their porky bodies. It'll change human flesh to insect meat on the pawn and give them a cannibalism mood debuff, or a buff in some cases, if they eat the same meat that they're made of.
How does one politely refuse a dish in circumstances such as these?
One doesn't.
You won't need to worry that often about killing or butchering bugs though, as insectors have insect pheromones. This will allow you to peacefully coexist with any non-aggressive bugs that are present on the map, and I cannot state that part of it enough. Non-aggressive. You'll be able to walk into cave systems and take insect jelly from any hives that are present on the map at the start, as well as hide behind the bugs to avoid dealing with any early raids. However, if these bugs get angry and seek revenge, or go manhunter, you are still a viable target, so consider very carefully if you want to try and make use of bugs on your map. They are not tame by any means, simply passive until provoked. Insectors are a little slower at moving than normal, which feels like a pretty fair offset for their insect skin gene, granting them a small amount of blunt and sharp armour on every body part. Whilst these values aren't massive, any kind of armour on certain body parts, like eyes, fingers and toes, can go a long way in stopping annoying injuries occurring in the early game which permanently maim a colonist and damage their stats for years to come. Another new gene is the insect jelly dependency. This combines a standard drug dependency with a hemogen style bar for all Insector pawns, allowing you to set the desired level of jelly consumption that they should be aiming for. Eating even a single piece of insect jelly provides 50 fulfillment to this bar, so Insectors don't need to eat massive handfuls of jelly for every single meal. To make the most of your jelly stockpile, you'll likely want them to be treating it as a dessert, eating a full meal to make sure that their need for food is topped, so they take the smallest portion of jelly possible from the stockpile to satisfy the dependency. If your Insectors are treating jelly like a common foodstuff, you'll be running the risk of depleting your stores and pushing people into the deficiency with no way out of it. The gene that all of you were hoping for with Insectors is of course here, a chest burst pregnancy, from that iconic scene in the movie Spaceballs.
Oh no.
Ladybugs that get pregnant will need to implant their egg inside of a host body. This can be a human or an animal that's large enough to support it. The implantation process isn't exactly clean however, so whoever or whatever you decide to bury the egg inside will need some medical attention afterwards to stitch up the wounds and staunch any bleeding. It feels pretty obvious to say, this process is going to kill the host if the egg progresses through its gestation period and reaches maturity, a 15-day ordeal. This gestation will progress through 4 stages of severity. Egg stage is between 0 and 40%, inflicting 5% pain and upping hunger rate to 115%. Larva is between 40 and 75%, pushing the pain up to 10%, lowering consciousness by 5%, and increasing hunger rate to 150%. Pupa is next, between 75 and 90%, hitting the pawn pretty hard with 30% pain, minus 10% consciousness, minus 20% movement, and a 200% hunger rate. Finally comes the juvenile stage, between 90 and 100%. This slams the pawn with 80% pain, 10% max consciousness and a 200% hunger rate. The chestburster will be able to survive the host dying if it manages to reach that juvenile stage, such as if there are any issues caused by the pawn being hit with such a severe consciousness debuff, like if they already had some pretty bad brain scarring or there were other consciousness debuffs present on them. Chestburster pregnancies that you are aware of may be surgically removed. This is to say that, yes, there may also be chestburster pregnancies that you are unaware of, potentially joining your colony inside of a friendly wanderer. There will be a few telltale signs that not all is as it seems, but until the pregnancy has pretty much reached full term, it will be kept hidden from you. It might be worth checking to see if any new arrivals experience discomfort with no obvious cause, or if they spend more time in the dining room than your other pawns. Just saying. Also, at least at time of recording, don't try and be a clever dick by implanting these pregnancies inside of a deathless pawn. The pregnancy working as intended seems tied to the host pawn dying, with a deathless pawn becoming locked in an endless cycle of forced death rest, then instantly dying again because the chestburster is still at 100% without the baby actually emerging. There is some real body horror right there. The final gene is the biggie, gene line evolution. This is understandably metabolically expensive to add to a pawn as it grants access to the new gene line system in game. To start using gene lines, you're going to need to make some of them in the new UI. Don't worry though, this doesn't actually take any time in game or need a special building. The gene lines that you're making are templates for quick access, so you don't need to manually input the changes every time you want to evolve into something else. Basically, you make your gene line, you name it, save it, then when you use the Manage Gene Line button again, you'll see that your templates are now available to be selected, so you can evolve into them. Simple, right? So what are these gene lines then? There are a very strict set of upsides and downsides that need to be balanced out in quantity in order to apply them. For every positive evolution you take, you're going to need to take a degrade, with some of these choices being pretty general buffs or debuffs, and others being highly specific or altering how your colony will need to live. Let's cover the basics of the metamorphosis process then. A pawn in a metapod is treated similarly to a pawn in a cryptosleep casket. Their needs are frozen and they're totally unable to act. A pod can be destroyed and it won't just kill the pawn inside, they'll cease to exist entirely. There's no body to bring back with a resurrection serum and no way to mourn their loss, so treat metapods with care.
This is no place to die.
The process of evolving can be sped up by feeding the metapod with insect jelly, and just 15 jelly will cut it down from a 5-day timer to a mere 24 hours. This will allow you to quite rapidly cycle evolutions through your colony as needed, so you can do it around things like a seasonal temperature tolerance or focus on large scale jobs that would be easier to complete with some work speed bonuses. If you go back and change a preset that you saved, it'll make all pawns that were using that preset immediately enter a metapod to apply these changes to. So if you don't want that to happen, make sure you make a new preset so that you can move people over to it one at a time. Also bear in mind that you'll likely want a pawn outside of a pod that's able to feed the others jelly, and throwing all of your pawns into pods at the same time will trigger a game over message, as technically you've lost control over all of your colonists. Metapods aren't exactly known for their work speed or colony contribution. Okay, time to cover the evolutions and degrades. At a casual 22 evolutions and 18 degrades, I'm going to go through this with a bit of pace, otherwise this video could easily become the length of a Factions Expanded rundown. We've got hive glands to boost construction speed, compound eyes which improve weapon range, shooting accuracy and the sight stat, vocal glands that boost social impact, trade prices, negotiations and talking, antimicrobial peptides to improve injury healing rate and immunity gain speed, insectoid wings that boost movement by 25% and grant the pawn an insect leap ability, which works exactly the same as a sanguiphage's long jump. Insect mandibles to boost eating speed by 400%, a robust midgut to improve raw nutrition consumption and provide an immunity to food poisoning, working the same as the strong and robust stomach combo. Hive grey matter will boost global learning factor to 150%, Mega Spider Horns will provide a small boost to mining speed and grant the pawn an additional option to headbutt someone in melee combat, stunning them. Detoxifier Tubules grants immunity to toxic in all of its forms: damage, environment, and gas. Hypothermic Slowdown stops insectoids from experiencing hypothermia, instead entering a slowdown state if they become too cold. They suffer no damage with zero risk of losing parts to frostbite, while still being able to move to try and reach a safe temperature. Slowed Life Cycle behaves like the non-senescent Archite gene, never experiencing age-related health problems, and also aging at a reduced rate. Hardened Chitin lowers incoming damage to 75%, halves stagger time, and slows movement by 15%. Sensitive Brain Goop increases psychic sensitivity by 30%, Psi Focus gain from meditation by 20% a day, and neural heat recovery by 0.2. Serotonin is like having a joy wire installed, boosting mood constantly by 30 at the cost of 20% consciousness, whilst also increasing the chance of getting into social fights by 200%. Heat Shock replaces the normal response to heat stroke, and whilst it doesn't grant a pawn immunity to things like superheated air, it will stop a pawn dying from prolonged exposure to severe temperatures, by instead impacting their movement, manipulation, and hunger rates, rather than their consciousness. Jelly Sacks will grant the pawn and colony easy access to insect jelly by pooping out 6 units of it every day. The Spawning Sac will replace the Chestburster pregnancy with a standard one that gestates 25% faster. It also increases the pawn's fertility rate by 200%. Parthenogenesis allows a pawn to impregnate themselves.
Go fuck yourself.
This removes the Chestburster pregnancy ability as they gestate the child themselves, and it also removes all natural fertility and the ability to get pregnant through loving. Cuticle Shell provides an effect similar to penoxycyllin, making the pawn unaffected by illnesses like the flu, malaria, sleeping sickness, plague, and lung rot. The Spelipede Horn improves mining speed by 20%, which is double the Mega Spider Horns, but it doesn't provide the melee stun option. Ripper Blades replace the pawn's hands with large, serrated, armour-shredding melee weapons, which provide a great deal more damage, at the cost of lowering manipulation quite significantly. This, in turn, kind of knackers the pawn in melee combat, because they miss countless attacks as their claws are so unwieldy, and unfortunately, because of the way that bionic arms work, replacing from shoulder to fingertip, you can't bypass this manipulation hit either. Ripper Blades simply won't be applied to modded limbs. As for the negatives, there are Ocelli Eyes, which cap sight at just 5%, Vocal Chitters, which remove the ability to speak, an Immunodeficiency, which halves injury healing factor and lowers immunity gain speed to 90%, Inflexible Joints that lower movement by 25% and further increases the penalty of moving over difficult terrain, an Inefficient Midgut that adds 250% to food consumption but doubles the capacity of the hunger bar, so that pawns don't spend the entire day running back and forth from their job to the freezer. Porous Skin lowers beauty by 2, but you already knew that. Low grey matter reduces global learning factor to 25%, and halves psychic sensitivity. Vestigial Tubules halves toxic resistance to both environmental and standard effects. Hypothermic Hibernation is a worse version of Hypothermic Slowdown, with the pawn instead entering a deep sleep if the ambient temperature becomes too low. This will stop them experiencing frostbite, but it may cause them to collapse at awkward moments and then need rescuing. Rapid Life Cycle not only lowers the expected lifespan, but it also increases the aging factor for over 18s by 400%. Be careful about putting this on a pawn that's older than 30, it might kill them overnight. Weakened Chitin increases incoming damage to 150%, but provides a 15% movement speed buff, so you can scurry away from danger. Heat Stress amplifies heat stroke risks, makes the pawn pyrophobic, suffer 400% increased damage from fire, and collapse from heatstroke far quicker than any standard pawn. They also take burns in a similar way that cold would cause frostbite, so heat is lethal to them. Dormant increases the need for sleep, increasing sleep fall rate to 180%. However, It also ensures the pawn will never have social fights or violent mental breaks. Low octopamine halves fertility rates as well as slapping a -20 mood debuff on the pawn. Pollution dependency makes the pawn reliant on huffing exhaust fumes and spending time on polluted tiles.
No, the air fresheners. They have lavender.
Yeah, it's lavender air It's
Yeah.
Working like a drug dependency with 5, 30 and 60 day downsides. Protein denaturation works similarly to a UV sensitivity, slowing the pawn's move speed and impacting their mood negatively if they're in direct sunlight, as well as increasing the flame damage that they take. And yes, this will stack with heat stress. Pawns die practically instantly if they even touch fire. Stenothermic tightens the pawn's comfortable temperature range by 4 degrees on either side, which honestly isn't that bad if you've got decent clothing. Acid Blood is the same as having a death acidifier installed, whilst also making the pawn exude toxic gas when injured. This can be extremely dangerous if not paired with a detoxifier tubule, as I found out when I tried to install a bionic on a pawn with Acid Blood, botched the operation, which killed them in their own toxic gas, because the combination of a consciousness drop on top of the anesthetic was almost instantly lethal. Whoops. As you can guess, there are dozens, maybe hundreds of combos that you can mess around with here. Going over all of them is going to be impossible as it's not just the new gene line system. These can also play into actual germline and xenogenes too. From what I can tell with somewhat limited testing, gene line genes typically take priority in most cases, so you'll struggle to get around the negatives by using things like xenogerms for example. There are obviously some negative genes that are practically freebies in some colonies, like stenothermic or hypothermic hibernation. Others are practically insane to take, looking at you, Ocelite Eyes. The last part to mention with Insector is that you're going to get a new starting scenario, an infested ship crash. This starts you off as a hive race with 6 insectors, some insect jelly, wood, herbal meds, pemmican, steel and the remnants of your crashed vessel. Just ignore the starting dialogue that seems to think 3 equals 6. All in all, an awesome mod to round out the current wave of vanilla races expanded, as there appears to be no current plans for any further races as of recording, which means we're not likely to see an Impid, Neanderthal, Itakin or Dirtmole overhaul anytime soon. Understandable given the release of Anomaly and that the VE team are looking to overhaul some of the older factions. There's already quite a lot of stuff in development and these xenotypes aren't really in a bad place, they're just a little plain. Now, go out and build yourself a perfect bug colony. I had a blast messing around with these guys to get this footage, definitely some neat mechanics to smash together here. Thanks for watching folks. If you have any mods you'd like to see a full breakdown for or suggestions of mods you'd like to see covered, feel free to leave them in the comments, I might get around to them. I'll be back again soon with another Rimworld mod rundown. Wherever you are in the world, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon or evening. Take care.